Oh, hello, yeah. Well, it's Friday. It's quite nice, isn't it? Yes, definitely. Vaguely getting back into the swing of things, I suppose, and yeah, I've moved on from feeling deeply resentful at anyone that's under 20 that I have to work with, because I'm, well, back in the swing of things, I suppose. And I suppose yesterday's big news in a lot of ways was, well, no, not Trump, obviously, although kind of Trump, because it always just is, was the Jimmy Kimmel being cancelled. For those of you that don't know Jimmy Kimmel, it's not much when we think of comedy as being comedy, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. I mean, the only analogy I can think of is those very, very comedic sort of half hours they have on Radio 4, where it's Fascinating Aida or Hinge and Bracket. You know, those kind of amusing things that you understand conceptually that they're supposed to be funny, but you seem to have to be a particular type of person to really enjoy it. And I think Jimmy sort of fell into that line. He wasn't the worst of them, but I mean, he's no Stewart or Colbert. Yes. So anyway, he's gone, I think, basically, not because he was making jokes about anything, but that he was questioning the now orthodox narrative about the perfidious nature of Antifa trans people, because, of course, we definitely know it was definitely Antifa trans people what did that thing. So you're not allowed to question that whatsoever, and I think that's what touched the nerve. And so good to see big business not definitely falling into step with an authoritarian government, because after all, wouldn't want those profits to be dented with anything like a moral conscience. Anyway, it was actually mentioned, astoundingly enough, by the Free Speech Union in this country. I know, odd, isn't it? Yeah, because normally what Lord Young's boy, Lord Young, Toby Young, would do in these cases is simply ignore it because it's an inconvenient thing. You know, a lefty being cancelled. But he actually sort of, whatever proxy it was for him, said this. Funny how the left is suddenly worried about free speech and censorship when it's one of their own. I thought speech had consequences. Yeah, you can see the hilarious dig there. But, loads of us on the left, obviously, are concerned about free speech. There isn't this left-right split whereby all of those lefties want to shut everything down and all of the righties don't. Because I think if you just look at stuff that's happened in the last, year or so, you might see that particular narrative is wearing a bit thin. Might come on to things wearing a bit thin in a moment. Most likely the men in grey suits were just happy to have an excuse to pull the long-running show that was well past its prime, though eagerness to keep the Trump administration on side amid a high-value merger may also have played a role. Well, good grief. No faces, fictional detective. Still, it's not pleasant to see cancel culture spilling out on the right. Oh my God! Is that actually something that's approaching a comment from the Free Speech Union? It is. A taste of their own medicine and all that. But what we want to see is an end to comedians being cancelled for making jokes, however unfunny and crass, not an escalation of it. Free speech means a world where no one is cancelled, not where everyone is. It would be a twisted irony if one of the legacies of Charlie Clerk, an implacable defender of free speech, yeah, I know, me neither, was a wave of cancel culture in his name, which of course it will be, won't it? Because of course there is no point in wasting a good Dutch communist burning down the Reichstag when you've got one. Which led inevitably yesterday to this, Trump saying he's designating Antifa as a major terrorist organisation. What does that mean? Well, what that means, of course, is that anything they don't like will come under the umbrella of being left. It always has done, of course, but now it'll be official because we all know that they killed Charlie Kirk. And if you question it, well, they killed Charlie Kirk, didn't they? And they killed Charlie Kirk. And don't forget, it's such an insult to Charlie Kirk. And that's why we have to do these things, because of Charlie Kirk. And, you mustn't possibly question the fact that, the bloke what definitely did it, the bloke what definitely did that very bad thing with Charlie Kirk was definitely trans. And we know this for a fact because there are loads of people in the administration that have done lots of very, very odd things to convince us of that, including, the DNA that was found on the trigger, which is something that basically is never ever mentioned before trials in America. And the fact that, Conveniently, the person who done it, well, definitely did it, left a nice series of text messages just to point that out very, very thoroughly. As I said to my child yesterday, if I had done something like that, I wouldn't admit it to you in a text message. I'd probably gonna do that thing face to face. Don't know about you. Yes, the astoundingly online young person appears to have no traces of whatever he did online. Bit strange. Still, I don't think it's any less strange than the fact that the person in the original photographs who was the suspect doesn't appear to bear a great deal of resemblance to the person what was in court. But that's just me finding faults with things, obviously. But all of this whole thing comes to that basic problem that there is now with so many different narratives, whereby we were assured a short while ago that, the Americans had to have their guns because if ever they were faced with an authoritarian government, they wouldn't stand for it and they'd rise up with their guns and then the government couldn't do anything about it whatsoever. And oddly, what we found is that the entire apparatus of the state is being utilised to make sure that all of those good gun owners are definitely on side and nothing will be done whatsoever. And people like Toby Young will certainly play their part in that, won't they? Because, of course, there's always reasons why, Graham Linehan, anyone looking at him funny must be banged up. Whereas Graham Linehan being vitriolically abusive to people is just something that should happen. Because, after all, they did look funny at him, didn't they? But that's where we are now, okay? And, I think that, we will see yet another ramping up of these kind of things. I'm expecting an awful lot more people who seem to struggle with notions about what fascism is coming into my feed, because after all I must be wrong because I'm left wing and I must be a member of Antifa. But it will be reasonably amusing, I think, to see what happens next with Kimmel, because we also have Colbert, don't forget, and what with Jon Stewart, with the various ideas that he might well sort of run for office. They could make a very, very interesting grouping together because they are still box office. You might not like Stephen Colbert, and it's a bit dry and a bit fey as far as my tastes are concerned, but by God, he's got a big audience. We will see. But of course, if all of those new shows do get cancelled, then I don't know, Toby. Will that be cancel culture, and will that be bad? To which Toby will shrug and walk away. And if he's really forced to make a comment about it, he'll probably say that they brought it upon themselves. After all, they're just supporting Antifa. We all know that Antifa are really, really bad. Just, think about Charlie Kirk. Do have a lovely Friday if you can do, and maybe try not to worry about creeping authoritarianism. Yes, always amused with people on the right because they assume that it won't happen to them. And by God, historically, that's definitely been the case. Well done, boys. Almost always boys. Do have a good one.